Hi there, and thank you for checking out our video on how to remove an officer or a general member from a student organization. We're going to cover some proactive and preventative measures you can take to hopefully avoid this, but then ultimately how to do this process if it does come to be necessary. This video covers removing officers and members both, so if a section doesn't seem relevant, there are timestamps in the description to hop around. There are a lot of reasons why you might remove someone, either as being a member or being an officer of a student org. One common reason we see is that there's some sort of conflict at play. If it's an officer, maybe they're not pulling their weight in the club. Maybe there's tension or aggression between officers for some reason. The easiest way to address club-related behavior like this is to have proactive conversations about the person's role on the team. From the beginning, you should be looking at each officer's job description and outline clearly what should be expected. How can you impeach an officer for not doing their job if their job was never really outlined? This sort of miscommunication or lack of communication is often a problem for clubs, so try to be upfront about what you need from them. If they then don't follow through, that makes the removal process much easier. If it's difficult for you to talk to your officers about following through on their job, there's a few people that can help. Obviously, your advisor in student life can be a resource. We can moderate this conversation as an unbiased observer, and hopefully get down to the root of what the problem is. Another resource you can use is the campus ombuds. This office is dedicated to helping members of the UCR community address conflict in thorny situations. They won't make a decision, so it's not a place for a who is right conversation, but you can consult with them confidentially, and they can facilitate discussions to help you work things out and make sure everyone is being understood. The tricky thing is that the Ombuds office is a voluntary service, so you cannot require any officer to participate in any process involving the Ombuds. If you're having trouble in your org with people doing their jobs, consider writing up the job description as a contract or an agreement that everyone signs when they start their term. This sort of clarity helps officers understand the commitment up front and makes it easier to address behavior after the fact. Now let's say that someone doesn't do their job, and now you need to address that. I often suggest that this conversation starts by asking the person if they enjoy the position or want to continue doing this position. If an officer has completely stopped showing up and stopped doing their job, it's likely that the club is not their top priority, and often they might choose to voluntarily step down. This conversation goes much smoother than going straight to an impeachment trial. Find out what's causing them to miss meetings or not do their assigned duties. Do they need a break from the club? If they were passionate and excited about the club, it shouldn't be difficult to get them to step up. So there must be something going on. If they say that yes, I do care about the club and want to continue, but then they still don't do their job, that's when you might have to resort to the impeachment process, which we'll cover here in a bit. You can hop to that section using the timestamps in the description. There are also some other reasons to remove either an officer or a member for behavior that isn't necessarily club related. They might be abrasive or disruptive. There might be allegations that could include sexual assault, harassment, bullying, and other actions of discrimination based on one's identity. For folks that are abrasive or disruptive to the community you're building, you're likely within your rights as a club to remove them, as long as you follow your own process, which again we'll talk about soon. You'll likely want to refer these students to resources, either before or after you remove them. A good general resource is UCR's Case Management Office. This is an office that can help a student problem solve or prioritize issues. They can explore healthy solutions with students, and in addition, they can refer them to relevant resources for mental health, disability resources, basic needs, or more. The student may not understand why they are being asked to leave the community. But if the student is willing to explore these issues, then case management can help them discuss their own behavior and hopefully find resources to help. If the issue is more severe, such as sexual assault or some other type of harassment, we encourage you to outsource this investigation to professionals. It might be easy for your group to make up your own minds about how the scenario played out and remove the member or officer right away, or you might feel pressure to take action. But that's not necessarily the best way to handle this. You should share what you know with the Title IX Equal Opportunity and Affirmative Action Office. These are professionals who are trained in how to respond to reports of this type and will make sure that everyone's rights are respected. If the student doesn't want to put themselves out there and instead wants to talk to someone in a confidential space, the CARE office on campus has designated CARE advocates, folks that can help a student talk out the situation and discuss their options and support without directly confronting the student or person responsible. CARE stands for Campus Advocacy, Resources, and Education. The CARE office does not investigate or adjudicate cases, so there won't be a formal report or definitive answer. But they can support you with accommodations, including academic, housing, and safety support, and help impacted students with exploring options. CARE advocates also support friends and fellow org members of the student who experienced harm in order to explore next steps. You can provide both of these options to any students in your organization who are seeking these types of resources. Proactively, CARE also does workshops on this topic, utilizing a peer group to discuss consent, bystander intervention, healthy dating behaviors, and more. You can either ask CARE to arrange a workshop for your members, or refer your members to pre-planned events that CARE might be hosting. This might be good if you think your members are confused on the issue or in the aftermath of a public incident that you'd like to discuss. So let's go through the timeline if an allegation happens. It's a safe bet to immediately and temporarily remove the student who has been accused, while the club figures out what to do. Refer the student making the claim to ideally the CARE office first to discuss their options, or the Title IX Equal Opportunity and Affirmative Action Office if they want to pursue filing a report. If they file a report, you can wait for that verdict before ultimately removing or allowing the person back into the organization. If they didn't file a report, but just discussed with a CARE advocate their options, there won't be a clear decision. So it will be up to your organization to make a call. Since you're not trained in this investigation, be sure to use verbiage like "we're removing this officer for sexual assault allegations." So it's clear that the allegation itself was a cause for removal. If there is behavior that club members have observed that warrants removal, such as aggressive, hostile, or offensive conduct towards others, that may also provide a solid basis for removal. Throughout this process, there is also a resource for the accused, as long as they're a student. Students who have been accused of sexual assault or harassment can connect with what's called respondent services by emailing respondents@ucr.edu. And this dedicated staff member can walk them through their rights and resources throughout this situation. Now, what about non-students that might be accused? These people won't go through the Title IX office, and there likely won't be a clear decision. So it's up to the club to figure out how to handle non-students. They're being invited to be a part of the group because the group has allowed them to. So I think it's a safe call to remove non-students from the club, even for allegations. That's totally within your boundaries to do. Let's get to the logistical part of this whole process, and that's how you actually remove a member or an officer. They did one of the things we just talked about. They were rude, they didn't do their job, they were accused of misconduct, any of these things. Your executive board now needs to move to impeachment. This process can look a little different from organization to organization, and it's all based on your constitution. So I'd recommend looking up your club's constitution and finding the section about the removal of members and officers, and see exactly how your club does it. If you're not happy with the process and want to clarify or add to it, you can refer to the amendment section on how to make changes. The first thing you'll want to see is if there's two processes to follow, or if removing an officer and removing a member both follow the same process. If there's two unique processes, make sure you understand how they're different. For example, some clubs might say that removing a general member is an executive board decision, but removing an officer is a general decision. It's best practice for the entire membership to have a choice when removing officers. To impeach the president of a club, it shouldn't just be up to a handful of people to decide, but rather the whole club. To remove a general member who has a history of making people uncomfortable, that might be a bit much for the entire membership to be involved in, and so it's safer for the board to handle that by itself. In both cases, there's likely a step in your constitution that allows the student in question to have a say or give their argument. They should be given this chance in front of everyone voting. So if the general membership is voting, this person should speak in front of the entire membership. And you also want to make sure you track quorum. If you're unfamiliar with the term, quorum is the amount of people needed to make your vote legitimate. 3 people can't vote out the president if there are 10 executive board members, for example. Most clubs have a quorum default of 50% plus 1 person. 6 people in the exec board would need to be attending to vote out the president if there's 10 officers. Quorum for general members might be lower if you think getting 50% of your entire club together at once is difficult. Again, check your constitution for details and propose an amendment if you want to change those numbers. So I referenced all the things you need to look for in your constitution. Surprisingly, clubs might not be looking at this, and they might just be making independent decisions. Let me be super clear here. These are guidelines that your group created, and we expect you to follow them. If you remove a member or an officer without following this exact process, we will void your decision and make you redo the process, which might be reopening old wounds. So make sure you follow the process right on the first try. If you'd like to talk to one of our advisors about these processes or about amending your constitution, email ucrlife@ucr.edu with what club you're with, and we can arrange a meeting to discuss. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this answered most of your questions.